out of the shelter and back in the mud. There it is everywhere. Had a good night last night. Enjoyed hanging out there, talking to some other hikers and just chit-chatting, having a good time. But a couple things, that Vermont does not have bear boxes like Massachusetts did. There's actually a big green, it looks like a bear box on the way into the shelter, and everybody assumed it was a bear box, but I'd read in gut hooks that it was actually a tool chest for the maintainers. So typically when I get into camp, one of the first things I do after I set up my shelter is hang my bear line. And I had a devil of a time getting it up, and it started with one branch, and when I went to hang my bag, it just wasn't strong enough. So I tried a few other branches and was getting nowhere. I don't have a good arm to hit a 20-foot branch, so I was struggling and telling everybody not to watch me, and they're like, oh no, this is Hiker TV, we're having a great time. But finally a guy named Hobbit came to my rescue with a good throwing arm and got my line up on a branch that I had picked out, so I was able to hang my bag, got that done. And there were a few mice in the shelter, and I did stay in the shelter because the tent spots just looked awfully slopey and wet, and had a lot of roots and stuff, so I was just being sort of picky about my site, especially because I wanted to get out early. And so I stayed in the shelter, and a mouse ate one of my earplugs. Thankfully it wasn't in my ear at the time, but I woke up in the morning, I'm like, where did my other earplug go? And I started looking around, and I see one earplug that's chewed, and the other one is just a pile of earplug crumbs. So lesson learned, don't leave earplugs out for mice. Another guy unfortunately had critters, even though his bear bag was hung, they got into his bag and chewed a little hole through, so gotta watch out for those little guys. I've decided that when I get to New Hampshire, I'm treating myself to a new pair of shoes. The ones that I have right now, I've got about 350 miles on. Vermont's 150, so I'll be 500 miles and tons of mud. So I figure I'll be due before I get to the Whites to a nice new grippy pair of shoes. And I mentioned yesterday I wasn't sure who was gonna win the mud wars, whether it was Massachusetts or Vermont. Vermont wins hands down just based on depth of mud. I stepped in it probably halfway up my calf yesterday, and so that's kind of dangerous because you really can't see what's in there, and you could easily stick your foot in and trip, and yeah, so it's going to be interesting today. I've got 11.6 to go. I don't know how much of it's going to be muddy, but I'm going to have to be careful and at the same time try to make speed so I can get to town. I'm going to Bennington tonight, staying at the Catamount Hotel, and they will come pick me up from the trailhead, which is great because it's 5 miles into town. So I will give them a call from, ooh, that's a bug on my head. I will give them a call when I'm about an hour out on a hill, because I guess there's no service at the roadside, and they will come get me, which will be awesome. And I can hopefully get my package if I get to the post office in time, do laundry, get some food, resupply, all that good stuff. I'm starting on my first climb of the morning. It is my good morning wake up climb, 2 miles, and I think about 800 feet of elevation change. I'm already out of breath, but I think it's the biggest climb of the day, and hopefully it really won't be too bad. One nice thing Vermont has that Massachusetts doesn't seem to is some of these stretches with carefully placed rocks through the bogs. Well, I reached the top of the climb, but there's no view other than that little sliver as a reward. It's not quite 2 miles, and I did it in just over an hour, so I'm feeling like I'm moving pretty well considering it was a pretty rocky climb up. Sort of a view here with the power lines. Not much though. This is a beaver pond, and there's an outlet somewhere close up. I'm not sure exactly what the outlet means. I guess it's just where the water comes out, but it's really pretty this morning. And here is the outlet. I guess it's where the pond overflows. There's a little stealth campsite right there on the edge of the pond. That would be a nice place to camp.